Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is the News Brief. Today we're going to be talking about Trump's blatant anti-Ukrainian narratives that he's not even trying to hide anymore, and of course his blatant anti-Western attitude. And we're going to discuss it together in the comments so you don't have to suffer alone and I don't have to suffer alone. So please, leave your questions, suggestions, constructive criticism, anything on your mind in the comments below because I read all of it. I love this back and forth communication we have, and I love hearing your feedback. Let's go. It comes as no surprise after Donald Trump recently started investigations into people that have criticized him that he would start to drop his mask on his rhetoric about Ukraine and really truly show his face as I wouldn't even say he's pro-Russian, he's definitely very anti-Ukrainian. I don't know if you have seen this interview, but recently Volodymyr Zelensky went on 60 Minutes, and in that interview he very openly called Trump out on everything that he has been saying that's a lie, and everything that he has been saying that's problematic. He's also invited Trump to come and visit Ukraine, and that ruffled some very serious feathers. Let's start with the fact that Zelensky noted that he had a really hard time talking to Trump and Vance in the White House row because, well, they called him a dictator. They equated Russian losses and Ukrainian losses, and they equated the struggle of two countries, which was, already a really difficult starting point for a dialogue where Zelensky was hoping to get some understanding. He did say that the shift in the rhetoric in the United States has been profound, and it's a shift in reality. And he said, no, really. The next point that he made was that he's inviting Trump to actually come to Ukraine and see for himself what Putin has done to Ukraine. He said, we're not going to take you on a pre-planned motorcade tour. We're not going to organize a theater. You can drop yourself in any city in Ukraine that has ever been attacked by Russia and see the consequences for yourself while walking around, while trying to do your normal daily business, while trying to sleep and hearing air raids. He said, you can't really talk about Ukraine or talk about deals or negotiations with Russia when you have literally never been here and you have never seen what's happening. So please do come to Ukraine, experience it for yourself. Because no matter what anyone says, and no matter how much people criticize Biden for his slow aid to Ukraine, for the wrongdoings that he has sort of accomplished while being in office, and for how much he has undermined Ukraine's effort to win quickly and win efficiently without as many losses, Biden has visited Ukraine plenty of times. Biden has gone to the Bucha massacre site. Biden has spoken to the Ukrainian people. He has seen the reality. And that's the sleepy grandpa who's decomposing and all that. He had no problem flying over. Trump has quite a bit of problems flying over because obviously he doesn't care. Also, interestingly, and I don't want to make it into like a Trump versus Biden situation because that's not what this video is about whatsoever, but I actually found something very interesting the other day on Twitter. And it was an excerpt of the video from Jake Sullivan explaining why Ukraine hasn't been given Patriot missiles for a long time, for 2 years, which was one of the biggest points of contention as to why wouldn't you give them? Why wouldn't you give Ukraine all of these systems that would allow Ukraine to win? And Jake Sullivan said that actually it was not Biden dragging his feet or Jake Sullivan dragging his feet on advising. It was more so that the military and the defense industrial complex reached out to the U.S. and said that their stockpiles were too small, and they wouldn't advise the U.S. to give these stockpiles to any country, not just Ukraine or not specifically Ukraine. So during the 2 years, they manufactured more and then gave them to Ukraine. I don't know how much of that is true. It might be, but the U.S. military industrial complex is so big that honestly, they could have spared some. But at the same time, at least that's an explanation, and that's an explanation that shows the previous administration's attitude, where they actually are pro-Ukrainian and they did give Ukraine weapons. It's just that there were humps and bumps on the road, while this administration was spewing quite anti-Ukrainian rhetoric for a while now. However, it was veiled, and now they decided to drop the veil and drop the mask. Zelensky also pointed out in his 60 Minutes interview that Russian narratives are prevailing over the war in Ukraine. And in the United States, it's actually, mostly Russian propaganda that's being shown right now. And when he was asked if he thinks that the United States is a partner to Ukraine and that Ukraine can rely on the United States, Zelensky actually took a pause Now that you've seen this video and his explanation, I mean, I think that's worth a million words. Ukraine can't rely on the United States, and Ukraine cannot see the US as a partner, even though we need to, because blatantly, every month, not even every month, but every week, this administration just keeps stooping lower and lower and lower and lower. Cue in the most recent article from Politico, where they described President Trump's reaction to how Zelensky was received in Europe after the bash out, after the shouting match in the US. In fact, Trump was so mad at the hugs and embrace and consolation that Zelensky received in Europe after Trump was trying to humiliate him and honestly acted like a baby in a diaper in the Oval Office. There is speculation that military aid to Ukraine was not even cut as a benefit to Russia, but because of Trump's really childish butthurtness. He decided to punish Ukraine for European leaders agreeing with Zelensky and embracing him after this entire, frankly, ridiculous situation transpired in the White House. Apparently, originally, Trump was upset about Zelensky's meeting with King Charles because now he didn't feel special enough because, the monarch was supposed to only hang out with Trump and not extend his time and friendship to Zelensky. But yeah, the whole love-in, and I quote, didn't land well with Trump's team and Trump himself, and therefore they decided that Ukraine does not deserve to have weapons. But here's the thing. With the information we know now, first of all, Trump blackmails various officials in order to get what he wants, which is evident by his latest move with the United Kingdom. He basically said that the UK, he requires them to get rid of the LGBTQIA protection laws if they want to continue conversations on trade with the United States. What Trump is doing is he's forcing the world into his Handmaid's Tale order, or trying to, but I think he's going to fall flat on his face because most of these countries are just going to further separate themselves from the United States and trade with each other and really replace the US as a partner. And at the end of the day, the US is just going to lose its grandeur, but I digress. So this is evidenced by a lot of things that Trump does. For instance, you know how Trump was saying that Ukraine needs to start paying for weapons, and if Ukraine was paying for weapons, it would be a different situation, but since it's all a charity case, Trump can't give Ukraine weapons because, again, you shouldn't have started the war, which, by the way, it is the third time that Trump has said that Ukraine started the war and blamed Ukraine for responding to Putin's invasion instead of actually giving up territories immediately. Because, we should have been smarter than fighting someone so much larger than ourselves. Yeah, because that makes a lot of sense. But anyways, Trump basically said that if Ukraine had paid for weapons, it would be a whole different deal because, they don't want to donate weapons and they don't want Ukraine to mooch off the United States, which is how he was trying to blackmail Zelensky into a terrible minerals deal. But again, if Ukraine was buying weapons, it'd be fine. So with that in mind, because of Russia's recent much escalated attacks on Ukraine, Zelensky and the entire political administration of Ukraine basically offered the US $50 billion to buy Patriot air defense missiles because we clearly need a lot more of them in order to avoid deaths. And in light of the recent attack on Sumy and the most recent attack on Dnipro, we really need them. So Ukraine is offering to buy weapons, right? Not a charity case. Well, here's what Trump had to say to that. Clearly, he doesn't care that Ukraine is trying to buy weapons because it was never about the money. It was about wanting Ukraine to lose in his own personal agenda. About the attack on Sumy, Trump said, "I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake. But I think it's a horrible thing. They made a mistake." Russia, they have been making mistakes and targeting civilians with cluster munitions, specifically, which are designed to cause the most damage to people and kill the most people. Sure, they have been making that mistake for 3 years in a row now with all civilian infrastructure, right? It's always a mistake. It's just an oopsie-doopsie. When talking about Zelensky offering to buy Patriot air defense systems that could actually save lives, because, Trump consistently keeps saying that he wants to save lives and this war needs to end, right? Here is what he had to say. He is, Zelensky, always looking to purchase missiles. Listen, when you start a war, you gotta know you can win a war. You don't start a war against somebody that's 20 times your size and then hope that people will give you some missiles. First of all, not give you missiles, buy missiles. Second of all, Zelensky didn't start a war. Ukraine did not start a war. Russia attacked Ukraine, and Ukraine is trying to defend itself. And it's pretty freaking normal to buy weapons with money, right? From like Lockheed Martin, because isn't that what the defense manufacturers are for? They produce weapons for people to buy them, for countries to buy them, for militaries to buy them. But of course, it's not about the money. It's about blaming Ukraine. Separately, Trump said in a post on Truth Social that Zelensky allowed the war to start. President Zelensky and crooked Joe Biden did an absolutely horrible job in allowing this travesty to begin. There were so many ways of preventing it from ever starting, said Trump. Right. I mean, putting Russia in line and preventing this would have been one. Sanctioning Russia out of the wazoo and giving Ukraine weapons would have been two. I mean, really showing Russia the show of American force would have been three. Basically, you could have prevented this war by putting Russia in line and not allowing them to grow into the Nazi Russia that it is today. Yeah, that would have been a solution, right? But no, of course not. Let's blame Zelensky. So Trump is now starting an investigation into CBS News that perpetuates false narratives and criticizes Trump too much because of the 60 Minutes show and because of them publishing Zelensky's plea to buy weapons from America. So that's fun. That is not dictatorial at all. You know, there is a very interesting saying that I want to share here. Fascism starts this way. First, they fascinate the fools. Then they muzzle the intelligent. Trump has been muzzling the media. Trump has been muzzling the intelligentsia. Trump has been opening investigations into his critics. And Trump has fascinated the fools, clearly. And it's working. I mean, it's working better than anyone could expect it to work. Honestly, Russia is reaping the benefits of this and is probably drinking all the vodka they have in their country because they can't believe how lucky they are. And in the meanwhile, in lieu of all of this and very openly and outwardly anti-Ukrainian rhetoric, here's what the official U.S. embassy in Ukraine posted on their social media timeline. Your visa is expired. Your visa is revoked. You have to leave. Visiting America is not an entitlement. It is a privilege extended to those who respect our laws and values, which seems to me like they are trying to prepare Ukrainians, or not trying to prepare Ukrainians, but dropping a hint that they're going to start deporting Ukrainians that are in the U.S. on temporarily protected status or asylum from war. Because, you know, by telling the United States that we want to buy weapons from them and saying that Russian narratives are prevailing while Donald Trump is falsely accusing Ukraine of starting a war, we are not respecting their fascist rule and we are not respecting their fascist values. Well, you guys, the United States that we knew no longer exists. And if you're an American, you still have a chance to fight it. You still have a chance to take your country back. You still have a chance to make a change. Don't let your country turn into Russia, because from where I'm standing, it is rapidly becoming the divided states of Russia. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and if you would like to see more like this, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on all of your notifications so you don't miss when the next videos come out. Give this one a like, share it with a friend. Honestly, share it as much as you can because, I don't know, I hope as many people as possible can hear it. And, of course, leave your thoughts, questions, suggestions, anything in your mind in the comments down below. I'll make sure to read it, and I would love to hear your feedback. Till next time.